All right, welcome back. We are looking at expanding our understanding of exponents to include both exponents of 0 and negative exponents. So when we're looking at a 0 exponent, what we're looking at is when any number except 0 is raised to the 0 power, our answer is going to be 1. So if we have 1 to the 0 power, it's going to be 1. 2 to the 0 power is 1. 3 to the 0 power, 4 to the 0 power. So any number except for 0, when raised to the 0 power, is going to be 1. And the reason that this actually happens has to do with fraction division. So if we start thinking about if I have x to the third over, say, x to the third, what that actually means is I have x times x times x over x times x times x, and when you have a number divided by itself, they basically cancel each other out. So now you have all of these x's that are canceling each other out, so you're now left with what was at once x, but now there's no x's left that are being multiplied, so you have 0 x's left. But when you cancel that out, if you think about the value of, say, just 3 over 3, well, what does 3 over 3 equal? 3 over 3 equals 1. So that's one of the reasons why when we start looking at this, that when you have a variable raised to a power of 0, it ends up equaling 1, and it has to do with this right here and the fact that like 3 divided by 3 is 1, and when you have those numbers multiplied, and it doesn't have to be a variable, we just use x here. When they are multiplied by each other, they cancel each other out and are left with basically a 1, but there are no more of that factor being used. So now, what about negative exponents? So negative exponents actually kind of work the same way, but it's kind of weird to look at. So what ends up happening with negative exponents is when you have x to the negative nth, you're actually ending up with 1 over x to the n power, as long as x does not equal 0. Once again, relating back to that fraction division thing piece, and then also looking at rules of exponents, which we'll get into more later. So to begin, if we start with 5 to the negative second power, we're just going to rewrite this as 1 over 5 to the second power. And then since it's an integer, we can actually evaluate that. And 5 to the second power is 25. So this is going to end up equaling 1 over 25. All right, so 9 to the negative first power, same thing. It's going to end up as 1 over 9 to the first power. 9 to the first power is just 9 by itself, so it becomes 1 over 9. If we skip down to some of these that have multiple numbers, since this one is 4 to the negative third power, that's going to become 1 over 4 to the third, times 7 to the first power becomes 1 over 7, and then this would then equal 1 over 64, because that's what 4 to the third power is, times 1/7 still. And in the end, then, we end up with 1 over 448. Number 9, we have 3 to the fourth power over 9 to the second power. So 3 to the fourth power we can evaluate, ends up being 81. And then we have 9 to the negative second power, which is going to be 1 over 9 to the second. So I'm going to make this 81 over 1. So this ends up being 81 over 1 times 1 over 81. We're going to end up with 81 over 81, which in the end just gives us an answer of 1. So if we look at number 13, just as one more example, r to the negative 6th is going to become 1 over r to the 6th times, well, s to the 0 is just 1. So times 1 times t to the 11th is going to stay. It's a positive integer, so it's t to the 11th. If you wanted to put that over 1, you could. And now we're just going to multiply across, so we end up with t to the 11th over r to the 6th. So why don't you go ahead and try number 2 on your own, and then so pause the video, figure out the answer, and then we're going to check through number 2 and number 8 all together. Number 2 ends up being 1 over 8 to the 2nd. And when you evaluate that, that becomes 1 over 64. And then if we skip down to number 22, or sorry, not 22, number 8, we have 5 over the negative 4, or 5 to the negative 4th, which becomes 1 over 5 to the 4th, times 3 to the negative 2, which becomes 1 over 3 to the 2nd. 5 to the 4th is going to give us 625. 3 to the 2nd becomes 9. And now when we multiply this all out, we end up with 1 over 5,625.